Hey everyone, it's Tom Karadza. This episode is a pure experiment. I thought we'd bring in Ruben Furtado. So if you don't know Ruben, him and I have known each other for quite a long time now. We're good friends. We met at Oracle. I came up in Oracle on the technology side. He went in straight into the sales side. When I transferred into sales, he was actually my first sales manager. We flipped houses together in real estate. And then ultimately now we are working together here at Rockstar. He specializes in really the high-end modern real estate market. And is doing very well for himself. And he really comes from, I don't want to say nothing, but he doesn't come from a well-off background and had to work hard for everything that he has. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring in him and then also bring in Mike Desormeaux? If you don't know Mike Desormeaux, he's been part of the Rockstar team here pretty much from day one. Amazing guy, works with tons of Rockstar Inner Circle real estate investors, does a great job here working with investors, really helped people build some amazing real estate portfolios. And Mike's background is shared in another podcast. And if you haven't listened to it, he really comes from not a middle class or upper middle class background either. He shares a little bit of his story on this particular podcast, not much. We get into it much deeper on an earlier podcast. If you're interested, you can look up Mike Desormeaux's story in our podcast and you'll find it there. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring these two guys who are doing really well for themselves? They're really successful. Bring in my brother, Nick Karadza, who really started with his real estate adventures at a really young age and just pick their brains on personal development and money and their thoughts on money. So this episode is a pure experiment. There was no grand plan for this. I perhaps should have been a little bit more prepared to ask them questions. I just kind of threw stuff at them, didn't prepare them for what I was going to ask them. But we ended up talking about some pretty cool stuff and sharing different ideas back and forth. So I hope you enjoy it. And the idea and the concept behind this particular episode was just that. Let's talk about our ideas of money when we were young, how we think about it now, and personal development, how we view personal development, what we went through when we were younger and where it's gotten to us at this point in our lives. And share, just so that if you're going along your own journey, you can hear other people with their own challenges and successes and who's made mistakes and share our journeys, and perhaps we can all help each other along the way. So that's the idea behind this podcast. And if you were listening to this episode and you're on your own real estate journey, one of our books called Income for Life for Canadians is available on our website for free. And if you know someone who you think is about to explore real estate, but they're on the fence, you can share a free copy of that book with them. And the reason that particular book might be a good place to start for them is we've had so many real estate investors tell us they were on the fence about investing in real estate because all they found were different US examples of properties, or they were reading about investors that were outside of Ontario or outside of the Greater Toronto Golden Horseshoe area. But when they read that particular book with the local examples of different properties, it really got them excited that somebody in their neighborhood was having success with real estate, and perhaps they could jump in and enjoy some of their own success in real estate as well. So if you know someone who's thinking about getting into real estate investing, whether it be a joint venture partner with you or a family member that you know is on the fence, you can share a free copy of that book by downloading it at rockstarinnercircle.com/books. So that's rockstarinnercircle.com/books. You can get access to that Income for Life for Canadians book there. Books are probably the thing that have the biggest impact on my own life and my own journey. So to be able to share a book back and see if it can help someone in some way possibly is really motivating and encouraging for us to be able to do that kind of thing. Encouraging for us? I don't even know if I'm speaking properly at this point, but we're excited to be able to offer that if it's at all helpful. So with that, let's get on with the show.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? Is it time to take charge? Real estate, business building, the economy, health and nutrition, and more. It's the Your Life, Your Term Show with Tom and Nick Karadza. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay, we are live. So I'm just going to ask it. Nick, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Listen, I feel obligated to ask the freaking question now. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good.
Thanks for checking. I'm really glad that we have that out of the way.
Okay, listen, I got to just admit something. I don't know, can you guys smell anything in the office right now?
I did when I walked in.
Did you?
Yeah.
Also,
Hey,
Ruben,
you
can
have
you
this
speak inside the microphone?
You have a microphone.
Sorry.
No, just
that was the weirdest question though. Can you smell?
No,
anything
you
in
know the
office?
reason is because ever since I had that concussion, it's kind of left me with a stiff neck. And now that the concussion symptoms are pretty much past, if I get like physiotherapy done or anything on my neck, the trap muscles here seem to tense up the next day. And it tenses up, and the muscles right up my back of my neck tense up, and the muscle. You know, you have these little muscles on the side of your skull.
Right.
Do you guys know that or no?
Makes sense.
Anyway, I didn't even know I had muscles on the side of they tense up. So what I discovered is if I get these little pads, see these things on my shoulders?
Yeah.
These are what like my 80-year-old mother-in-law, when she has like arthritis or something, she puts these little muscle relaxant pads on. They're little stickers that you stick on. It's like, I think is Ben Gay like a muscle relaxant?
Yeah, I think it is.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I smell like an old man right now because I have these patches on and they smell, but they seem to do a really good job of relaxing my trap muscles, which relaxes the muscles on the side of my head. I realize how ridiculous this is, but this is the state of life for me right now as a 46-year-old man. Anyway, so if you smell something, that's what you're smelling.
I had no idea where you were going with that. I thought you were going to say that your sense of smell was stronger since you've had the concussion.
No, my sense of smell. Okay, we better get this episode on track.
Something,
We better get.
and I didn't have a concussion.
No, I know. You just listen. We got to get this on track. So the whole idea with this episode is we were going to talk about. I know, Mike, what you've been through over the last, I guess, 30 years maybe. Ruben, what you've been through. Nick, what you've done. And I just thought it would be really interesting to see if I could get something around your viewpoints on personal development and on money. And I guess because Ruben threatened me before we started this, Mike, we'll start with you. Nick, you're going to take off in what, 30 minutes?
Yeah, I gotta check. I gotta get downtown, but yeah, about 30 minutes.
30 minutes,
maybe
okay.
less even.
So I'll start with Mike. I guess what I'm interested to hear is, you know, you're now in your late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Can you articulate, do you remember what your thoughts around money or maybe people who quote unquote had money? Because I know your story, and just to summarize it really quickly for those who don't know, you don't come from like this big background of like upper middle class upbringing where you were just like on 5-star luxury vacations as a
Right.
kid or anything like that.
Yeah.
So now to the point where you're doing pretty well for yourself now,
Mm-hmm.
can you reflect back? Like, do you remember what you thought of around making money or what it would take to make money back then?
Yeah, geez, if I go back to, I think 18, 19 is probably when I opened up that book. I've referred to it before. It was Awakening the Giant by Tony Robbins. Because I didn't know wealthy people. Like, my area did not have wealthy people in it. I simply did not know wealthy people. But I think that book.
What area was
my
that?
eyes. Runnymede and St. Clair. You know, in front of us was the railroad tracks. Down the street from us was the slaughterhouses. On a bad day,
Is that Canada Packers? Is
Canada
that the right
Packers,
area?
yeah. It's
Got it.
completely been revamped since then. But I mean, there would be bulls or cows loose periodically every now and then. And back then, the police would walk up to it, and we could be kids in a playground, and they'd just shoot it right in the head. I'm sure that wouldn't happen nowadays.
Yeah,
no, but could you imagine that happening nowadays?
Yeah,
But
that's like front page.
But back then,
That'd be
that's what
animal
was
cruelty,
done.
and the police officers would be arrested by the animal
exactly.
activists.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a little bit different back then. But I think that was one of the books. And then somehow the vision board, it came into play. And I remember I always had this vision board in my room with things that I think that's how it starts, right? When you're young, it's things. You want these things because you don't understand.
Yeah, because we all had the picture of the Lamborghini or whatever, and
the yacht, the watches, and whatnot. But I think as you get older and mature, it's not about the things. It's more about the freedom and the experiences and the stories that you share with, you know, your family and friends and whatnot. So I think back then it was a book and a vision board that got me started.
And what was it in the Tony Robbins book? I can't believe you read that book. That is a thick book.
It is, yeah.
I listened to all the personal power stuff. I think it was Personal Power 2 by Tony Robbins that really changed my life. Our mom had the tapes signed out from the library, I guess, and we could borrow them and listen to those tapes. And then Ruben, I know you listened to those tapes as well. I want to ask you about that in a second. But do you remember from that book, was there anything that just kind of changed? Like, did it make you think, oh my gosh, I can accomplish anything I want in my life? Or what was the change?
As airy as that sounds, I think that was it, believe it or not. Yeah, because I went down that rabbit hole as well. Personal power, unlimited power. Went to one of the events as well.
The Tony Robbins events?
Yep.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Walked on the coal.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
What do you think... it took to have money when you were young. Because I mean, when Nick and I were young, I didn't really understand what it took I didn't see people who like bought investment properties. I didn't know people who were living in, I guess, Ruben, I'm looking at you now, like buying $3-4 million houses. Like I didn't know these people. So my concept of who had money and who didn't have money, Nick and I, we didn't really have those role models either. Mm-hmm. So did you have any concepts of like what it took to make some good money in your life?
Back then it was just working hard.
Yeah,
for
that was it for me too. Yeah,
I remember in high school, I would start at a gas station 7 a.m. on a Saturday and finish 7 a.m. on a Sunday. It was a 24-hour shift. Remember that on the corner? Yeah, right beside your house.
How'd you stay awake?
Barely.
How? But what'd you do? Drugs?
Yeah. No, I don't even think I was doing coffee back then either.
So how old were you?
So I was in high school, 16, 17?
Yeah, so it's easier to push through at that
true,
age, right?
True.
You can push through.
For sure.
So, because I had a couple episodes where I was out, drinking till late, and then somehow after like 3 hours of sleep, I could get up and work for like 10-hour shift. And now if I tried to do that, my God, I couldn't do 30 minutes of something.
Yeah. So that was a full serve gas station. So you do the regular people's cars and then you do the taxi cabs. But the taxi cab drivers, you're doing propane. And I remember they would tip you, and that was huge. It might only be $1, might only be 50 cents. But when you get that tip, you're like, wow, I'm in the money.
How much did you make on tips?
Not much.
No.
Was it $6-7?
It wasn't like bartending?
Oh, no. Yeah, that's a whole new level.
Yeah.
Okay, since Nick brought up the bartending, when it comes to bartending, you know how many people skills you picked up and sales skills? Did you realize how much you were learning as a bartender? Because you've parlayed all of that into what you're doing now, working with investors.
Right.
Like your social skills and your people skills, you probably honed those as a bartender.
Yeah, that's a good point. Never thought about it that way, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because I'm sure you saw all kinds of characters come through. Which bars were you? Were all downtown, and then you were in Niagara.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So one other thing just about the money topic, Mike, for you is if you had to look back at your, so you're in your late 40s now, if you had to look back at yourself at 21 years old, what would you tell that Mike about making money?
Yeah, you got me. Because I don't think I would have done anything any different, because then I would have had a different result. So I don't know what I would have said back then, because back then it was just hard work, and it parlayed into every other career that I've chosen was just hard work. And I feel that that's what led to more wealth. And
that's
being able to
interesting that you're
invest in
saying that, because
whatnot.
I wonder if how many people today believe, because you've said hard work a few times now. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many people today believe hard work is the path to making money. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people I speak to, and I don't mean this as a statement that covers everybody, obviously, because we meet people who hustle and work hard, but I do meet a lot of people who think that with a little bit of an app they make or with technology, you can almost hack your way to success and not put in the hard work. Like I don't meet a lot of people right now who just say hard work is the path, like you've repeated a few times.
Right.
I meet more people who tell me they're trying to figure out the way to make money, and hard work is never really brought up in those discussions. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't mean to blanket everybody like that. I'm sure someone listening to this is like all about hard work.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that you've said that many times and it doesn't really come up. Mm-hmm. Ruben, I want to switch over to you. We were joking before this, is one of the things that's always stood out from you is that in order for you to make some extra money, and one of your jobs, you were a security guard at Erin Mills Town Center.
That's right.
And I remember Erin Mills Town Center in Mississauga when it had the mini golf course around the center of the elevator or whatever it was.
Yeah, center court.
That was the worst mall, and no one ever went there.
I know.
So what did you do? You didn't have to do anything. You just hung out.
We did. What are we talking about?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they still had stuff happening. We were working security. Actually, Mike worked there with me for a year or two.
Yeah.
I thought you guys worked at Woodbine.
We did.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I guess I didn't remember the Erin Mills part.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when that mall opened, man, no one was there.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't much development still in that area, so that was really new. Right now, you have, obviously, that area.
It's changed a lot. Yeah.
So.
Holy cow. Sorry, and I cut you off, Tom.
When you, Ruben, when you speak, can you keep your mouth at the mic and then just look with your eyes to other people?
All right.
I just want to capture what you're saying.
I'm going to go cross-eyed.
No, don't look at the mic. You can go in.
It's like right between my eyeballs.
We're getting different mic stands. We're going to fix this problem. But anyway, I want people to hear what you're saying.
Seriously.
So listen, one of the things that you did always impressed me when you told me in order to make some extra money, you did what? Can you explain that story? Because I just want to get into your mindset on why you did that.
Yeah, so it wasn't to make extra money. It was a career path. So when I was doing security there was an opportunity to manage that miniature golf course in the center court. It was with the same property management company. So, and I applied for that position because I figured that would now put me on a career path to get into property management. So basically I took that job, but they didn't pay me what that was posted for that job. So the market value in a salary. And they said, because I didn't have enough experience. So I took the job anyway. They gave it to me, and then I had to prove myself. And by proving myself, what I did is I had to, obviously, it was never profitable. So I had to reduce all the expenses and then also figure out different streams of revenue.
The mini golf court wasn't responsible?
It wasn't, no, profitable.
Profitable, sorry.
It was responsible.
What did I say? Responsible? I'm out of it. Profitable. It wasn't profitable. Okay.
It wasn't.
Okay.
So,
what was your title? Manager of the mini putt?
I don't know. It was, yeah.
This sounds like a movie.
Oh.
Okay.
But either way, so yeah,
it sounds like the movie. Ruben. I'm Ruben. I manage the mini putt. Okay.
Yeah. So long story short is I looked at where the biggest expenses were, and it was in obviously salaries, labor, and then it was maintenance. So I started basically cutting back on, the front line. Instead of me being in the back of the office, I started working the front, cash, and so we cut back hours. And then we had a maintenance contract, and it was like $12,000 a year, but it was a substantial portion of the expenses. So what I ended up doing is I got rid of that. And after the mall would close around 9, 10 o'clock, I literally, in that miniature golf course, you had, basically, it was like you had your sand pits and then you had your ponds. But the kids used to love grabbing all the sand and throwing it into the water, which would turn into mud. So I literally had to drain all the ponds, and then literally by myself with a shovel, take all the mud and put it into buckets. And you know how far it is from the center court to the actual, I would carry buckets of mud, put them in my car, and then drive them out to the curb because that area wasn't developed yet, and dump it out. And that's how I basically saved them like $10,000. But eventually, between that and a couple other marketing promotions that we did with some of the vendors there, like co-marketing.
Didn't you switch out the sand to something else?
No, we replaced it with new sand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we took all the mud out, brought new sand in. Like I remember, it was like probably 2 weeks every day after closing, just doing that, and not getting paid for it.
So when you saw little kids then on the new sand, pick it up and throw it in the water, were you just freaking out?
Yeah,
absolutely. So what would you tell you? I mean, so
it's a good thing those little mini putts were made out of rubber.
So you smash somebody with it. Dude, we're talking about little kids here. You're not going to smash a little kid.
Maybe we should do it. We should do an episode with Ruben's kids on.
Oh my God. About Ruben. So what would you tell? So you were obviously all about hard work. I mean, just listening to that story, that's just pure hard work. So you had this hard work thing ingrained in you too. Yeah. So then what could you tell yourself? So there's automatically just a theme here. It's like hard work.
No. I think hard work's important. And I think that is a character that you start to develop early on. But I know a lot of people who work hard, that have multiple jobs and still are not financially free. Right. So I think all of us in here work super hard. But you would ask the question to Mike, if I can go back and talk to my 21-year-old self, I would tell him, hey, it's not how hard you work, because the game changer for me, again, wasn't reading a book or anything. I think the big game changer for me was my context changing of how much somebody could potentially make in what they did, right? So like Mike, I didn't, there wasn't anybody in my family, or did we have friends or anybody that we knew that was really successful. My dad owned a business. And I saw, hey, you want to make some money and get a little bit further ahead? You have a business, right? But then you were working 7 days a week. And it was all about hard work. Because if you didn't work hard when you had a business, it wasn't really going to go anywhere. But eventually, when I got into working as that manager in that mall, doing that, I saw that the property manager was making, and I still remember this, he was making $75,000 a year.
Wow, back then.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's why I took that job. That's why I was, every day after work lugging out these buckets of mud, is because I figured that's the person I want to be. But eventually, the best thing ever happened to me is a friend of mine, Rick, he basically made an introduction to somebody that was because he was in the software industry. And he's saying, hey, I can get you a sales job or a pre-sales job, like a telemarketing job in a software company. And I was going to make less money right? And I had to drive like an hour and a half for that particular job. I didn't want it because it was new to me. I was scared.
Yeah, wasn't that out in Markham somewhere?
It was all the way in Markham. And there was no 407 at the time. So I was going to drive an hour and a half every single day to make the exact same money to do something I wasn't comfortable doing, right? But when I got over there and I started interviewing, because I don't say no to anything until I actually find out what are all the pros and cons. So when I went out there and then I started meeting people there that were making 150, 200,000. And then my context changed again. And I'm like, okay, I'm willing to try this and do this. And I already had that hard work ingrained in me. So I knew whatever I did, and it wasn't just about hard work. It's also doing, like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm always going to make sure I do the very best of that job, right? It could be cutting the grass. I want to have my lines in a 45 degree, right, on the lawn, or washing it. It doesn't matter what it is. So when I went to do that job, I wanted to be the best at that job. And I literally, they were telling me it was going to take 2 years to get a promotion. Well, within 2 years, I had 4 promotions. So, and again, always being exposed to other people who are making more money. So I think if I can go back and talk to my 21-year-old self, I'm like, hey, you know what? First of all, just believe you're going to get there. 2, surround yourself with people that are going to change your context. And again, continue to work hard, right?
I think one of the big things too is the ability to delay gratification. So any of those jobs that you chose, you didn't go in at the top level, like you worked from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big point where people, want instant gratification, and they may be working hard, but if they don't get it, they often feel beat up, jaded, and try something else. Mm-hmm. And they make that switch too quickly.
Yeah, they don't give it
You had kids when you were young. Do you think that made you work harder, or I have a feeling you just always worked hard.
Yeah, I don't think it made me work harder. I think I made a lot more sacrifices.
You had Austin when you were 20?
I was 21.
21?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that just maybe give you a bit more focus, but I feel like you always had that hard work.
You did.
Yeah.
Mike's saying it for you.
Jeez, I grew up with this guy, and him and his brother were just moving furniture. It felt like 7 days a week for his dad.
I was like 12 years old.
But to Ruben's point, I think it's a combination. Like both you guys said, it's like hard work's a key, right? Everyone's looking. No, I shouldn't say everyone. There's a lot of people looking for, so focused on trying how to circumvent hard work that they're kind of like, they let all this time go by, and they realize if they put all that effort of looking for shortcuts into just kind of trying to do something and get really good at something, they would benefit that way. But it's got to be combined with what you were saying, Ruben. You got to work smart too. So it's like a combination of everything. And then to add to that, you got it, Mike, where you said you need to be kind of like, there is some delayed gratification. And anyone I know that's developed continued success, they haven't hit the home runs in their lives for their first swing. Do you know what I mean? They've kind of like just barely kind of gotten out of the batter's box and then made it seem, and then were able to get to the next level slowly. And then all of a sudden, as they're playing the game, they hit this home run. They're like, holy shit, that worked out really well. And then they're on to the next thing. So it's like, it's just this kind of combination. And I think, so often people are like, you always ask for like, well, what's the one thing? Like, what's the thing that I need to do? And there isn't one thing. There's like 5 things, there's delayed gratification. There's work involved. There's thinking about what you're doing, because if you just are a hard worker and all you think about is just moving the furniture that you're moving when you were younger, Ruben, then that's not going to work out too well. But if you want to be the best mover ever so that you can then own your own moving company and hire other guys, and then that might get you to kind of a different level financially too. So there's got to be like, there's all these pieces that kind of have to come into play. And I think sometimes, people are looking for one thing or 2 things, and maybe they should be looking for 5. And then you build off of that. It completes your puzzle.
I know you're going to leave in a little bit, so I want to circle back to asking you a specific question, but I want to address a point that you just brought up because I think it's important. Some people do, how you said you kind of have to like just work hard and pick a direction to kind of work hard in. Sometimes I find myself leaning when I'm talking to Aiden, my son, saying, hey, if you're going to work hard, you may as well, because I'm trying to think of the advice to give him. Like, I want him to like have his own life and explore his own stuff. Yeah. But if I reflect back on where the hard work has benefited us the most, like, so Nick, you and I, Ruben, we used to work together at Oracle and in tech companies. And then Mike, just our adventure together over the last dozen years about now, I find myself repeatedly saying, find out what the trends are and direct your hard work in one of those areas. So for example, when we were in tech, Ruben, when you worked hard, you were probably benefiting from that financially above and beyond what equal hard work in another industry that had already matured. So like the same hard work you and I were doing in software sales, if you and I were working the same way in, let's say, selling some kind of furniture, back to how you were selling furniture, we would have probably made a fraction of what we were making. So I find myself saying to my own children, hey, if you don't know where you're going to, like what you're going to love doing in life, keep searching. And in the meantime, try to find out what the trends are in the world right now and jump onto those. Because then so tech served us really well. And Nick, you were in the tech stuff as well. And now over the last 10 years.
For like 3 days.
No, 3 weeks. It was longer. It was a few months. Yeah. It was a few months. I'll never forget getting that call from the VP I reported to you saying, Nick just turned down the job offer you told me to make him. What's wrong with you? And I remember trying to think like, because I had a relationship. I liked this guy and then I was trying to maintain that. And then you're my brother. So I was trying to like say, hey, don't worry. Anyway, well,
I remember exactly where I was when I got that call, and he basically said, like, what the hell are you?
It was a good job, man.
Yeah. And he's like, what the hell are you like taking this job or what? And I remember exactly where I was driving down Winston Churchill. I was in the car. I guess you could still speak on your cell phone at that time because I don't think I had Bluetooth. So I probably was speaking on my cell phone. And I remember having that conversation. For some reason, I was at like the Winston Churchill, Britannia area, and I was driving south down there. It's funny, like those weird little moments. Sometimes you just remember them.
They're life changers.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. So what I was going to say on that is that over the last 12 years, real estate has been a trend. Who knew interest rates were going to be as low as they were going to be? I mean, we kind of talked about it, that were going to stay low, and we thought there was going to be a nice trend, but we had no crystal ball and no guarantee to it. But that was a trend over the last 12 years that we, all four of us here, have benefited greatly. So I find myself always asking people, hey, if you don't, or always kind of advising, if you don't know the area of life you want to focus on, find a trend that you think is going to go forward. So for example, maybe it's like esports, maybe it's biotech, like the emergence of biology and technology smashed together in some capacity.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
And go into, so even if you're not going to be a computer programmer for artificial intelligence, with none of us sitting here. I was a computer programmer for 3 months and I almost stabbing myself. I couldn't do that.
But you were talking about sales robotics.
Like, exactly. You know what I mean? You don't have to go. And that's something that I find I didn't know when I was younger. I always thought if I heard something like artificial intelligence, I would automatically assume, oh my gosh, you have to go into like be a hardcore programmer. But no, maybe you like marketing, maybe you like sales, maybe you like operations. You might as well hone your craft in that industry because the trend is going to have more money flowing in that industry. So you'll kind of financially benefit greater, faster. Does that make sense? So if there's one thing I kind of mix in, it's like the hard work and find the trend. Mm-hmm. Nick, I want to circle back to your hard work because we've repeated this before, but if you haven't heard, Nick, when he was 21, I think it was, bought your first home to flip, and you were getting up before you went to the Region Appeal to work, and you were doing all the work like before and after work, and you borrowed our dad's pickup truck. You almost killed our father when he slipped with what did he slip with?
It was a bag of cement. Was it ready mix?
Yeah, so he would have probably been already then almost 60 years old by that time.
Yeah,
no, maybe 55.
Because there was snow and then a bunch of freezing rain, so you can actually walk. When you can walk on the snow, it's so thick with ice. And he tells this story every week, right? So he slipped and he fell sideways down onto the ice, and the bag of ready mix landed right on his chest. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks for making me feel bad about it.
Yeah, free family labor. But
I was waking up at that time. But so I was early 20s or 21, waking up about 5:30, getting my dad's pickup truck, going to that house, loading up the garbage from the night before, driving to the Britannia dump, waiting for the dump to open in the center lane. I'll never forget. I was waiting in the center lane when the Britannia dump was still open. I was like half falling asleep. They would open the gates. I'd pull in, empty out the truck, drive back home, give my dad the truck because he had to go to his construction business, right? He had the pickup truck, get my car, drive to work, come home, stop on the way home at the gym, and then go to the house again. Yeah, that was all for, and at the end of the day, how much money I made. So look, there's lessons there. At the end of the day, I made $4,000, about $4,000. It was just under, I think, but it was like I round up because it makes me feel better. About $4,000 in profit after all that work and risk and everything.
Was it four? I tell people 3,500. I thought it was like 3,500.
I think it was like 37 or something, but I just round. It just sounds four makes me feel better about myself.
And you know what we did when Nick did that? I think I remember when he was telling me that we calculated that there was a McDonald's at like Lakeshore and Cawthra in that area. If he had just worked at the McDonald's the same same amount of hours, he would have made more money.
Oh, jeez.
But the lessons.
I don't think I
That's the
calculated that. I
lessons.
think Tom, as the big brother, wanted to point that out to me. Hey,
No,
Nick,
but I
you know, when I figured something out that you should hear.
No, I don't think I wanted to be an asshole
No,
about
I
it.
know.
I think I just remember thinking, I think they made him more money. I can't speak today. Make more money at McDonald's.
I was at in IT at the time, and at that time there was a demand for IT workers, technology kind of wave and stuff, and I could have easily worked extra hours and made substantially more money. But the lessons the path that set me on, the lessons were invaluable.
So something that comes up a lot in, I find, goal setting books or goal setting magazines is often. I also created a vision board.
Did you?
Yeah, in my own personal kind of development, I always, at the beginning anyway, it focused on Tony Robbins and like Les Hewitt and Mark Canfield stuff. Nick, you're out of here? Okay, Nick's taking off. And it led to creating a vision board. I have something on my vision board still because a bunch of stuff magically seems to have come true, which is weird. Sometimes I'm like, do I even admit that? Because then someone's going to think you just make a vision board, and it kind of excludes all the hard work that went into that. But there's a picture of a house that is in Hawaii with no walls on the exterior walls, and it's a beautiful roof, and it's got like a fire pit in the middle of it with an opening to the roof in the middle there, so I guess the smoke can get out. But the rest of the house is all like, kind of enclosed bedrooms, but the exterior of the house is almost like wide open. I don't know how to fully kind of describe this, but it's just this beautiful house overlooking the water. It's been tacked up on this vision board that I have like basically buried away in my basement somewhere at this point. But I'm always wondering, I'm like, is that one going to come true too? Like, I don't have the Hawaii house now. Like, what's the problem, vision board? Like, where is this Hawaii house? How come I don't have the Hawaii house? But something I wanted to mention is that what I didn't gather from my own personal development is that it often led me to focus on the things to get instead of the person I needed to become to earn those things. And I now know that the moment you decide to become the person that earns those things, you almost automatically set the forces in motion to achieve anything you want in life. And for me, that specifically started when I decided to live by principles. And the 3 principles for me in my 20s that I figured out for myself were, I'm always going to do the right thing no matter what. I'm always going to give 110%, and I'm always going to treat others as I treat myself, right? And when I kind of started living by those 3 principles, anytime I would stray off to make a decision that maybe wasn't right, the do the right thing principle of all of them always corrected course immediately. So for example, if there was like a way to make an extra $500 on a sales commission, but it wasn't the right thing to do, I would always, I'm trying to think if I should use the word always, because I'm sure there were sometimes I wasn't like perfect on this by any means, but I guess the vast majority of the time I would always go to defaulting to giving the $500 back or calling it out and making sure that the right thing was happening. And whenever I started living like that, I noticed so many more things falling into place for me and taking kind of massive steps forward in my accomplishments. Does that sound ridiculous when I say it out loud?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts when I said, do you guys kind of believe in that kind of thing? Like becoming the person to earn what you want kind of automatically guarantees that you're going to get what you want? I don't know if I'm being clear on this.
No, I get it.
Just grab the mic.
Sorry. It just keeps on moving.
Well, just hold it.
My arm will get tired. Is that me complaining?
No, you're good.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I also think that on the flip side, if on that vision board you see those things and you feel that you truly believe that you're going to get them, that the way you think and the way you act will also change. That will also align you with those principles, right? So it's a combination of both. Because I don't have those same guiding principles that I'm conscious of, right?
But I've seen you operate your life by principles.
But again, I don't have all I'm just saying is that I don't have them defined the way you do, but I still operate under the same type of principles. But I think part of it is just knowing what I want to accomplish and who I want to be, and then that'll kind of put my behavior in line with that, right? So, but I like the way you broke it down, though. It sounds a lot better.
Well, no, I can't take credit for it. You know where I heard that?
Where's that?
It was at Oracle.
Oh, was it?
It was one of the sales meetings. They played like a video of some Hall of Famer football coach. And he said, these are the principles our football team is going to live by. Nice. And I remember hearing the principles thinking, I think those are the principles I want to live by. I basically stole my life's principles from some movie. Anyway.
You don't even know the title.
They really worked really well. No, I don't. But I think the coach was Lou Holtz. I think it was a Notre Dame coach.
Actually, I remember that.
Do you remember it?
I do, yep.
It was like a really good inspirational.
It was.
Yeah, it was a bit in our 20s sometime. And then something else that has really been important is I kind of have figured out through my own experimentation with personal development, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, that my habits kind of create my future. So if I have principles that I live by, and then I have the right habits on a day-to-day basis, I'll kind of get what I want. And for me, one of the habits that I've always chosen to live by, not always, I guess it's been since I went out and quit my corporate job, was that not a single day would go by without me doing one thing that would earn me future business. And what I mean by that is that I'm not doing something to earn me money today. I'm not trying to close a deal with someone today to make money today. It would be one proactive thing, whether it was like writing an article, sending a thank you card to somebody, like just something that would possibly earn me future business, and I would never let a single day go by without me doing that thing. And it was like almost like putting deposits into my own future. And for me, having that habit has forced me to do all these things that I don't feel like doing. So like, making another video for one of our websites, or another blog post, or an article, or an email follow-up, or something. But that is like a habit that I can see has paid off greatly over the last 12 years. And I feel like I'm putting you guys on the spot, but do you guys have any morning routine habits or any habits that you're operating at a high level when you do those kinds of things?
Well, for me, it's physical activity. So I have a habit. First thing I do when I get up in the morning is go to the gym. I find that keeps me energetic, very clear, and it just makes me feel like I've already accomplished something early. I find that if I try doing it later on in the evening, it's much harder for me to commit to. So, and then from that, it's like coming back, I do meditate. There's the meditation I do, it's called this 6-phase meditation. So the idea of meditating is to not think of anything. But for me, it's just hard to kill 20 minutes and not being productive. So there's a process that I go through. And then it's going right into work. So I don't have like, I remember at one point in time, I thought it was the most amazing thing. I'd break out like a to-do list and put it out in 4 quadrants, things that are urgent and important. And that definitely helped guide me to be more productive during the day, but that kind of dropped off the wayside. So that's all I'm doing for now.
Why do you think the morning workout, what is it about that? Just sets you mentally straight?
It does, yeah. Because it immediately makes me feel like, okay,
I've
accomplished something that would typically be very hard to get done during the day. And I also enjoy doing it. So it makes it very easy for me to get up. So I think sometimes we make things too hard on ourselves. So if we're trying to do certain things, all we need to know is like, start off with something that you enjoy doing, and then that gets the momentum going on to the next thing and on to the next thing. So, yeah.
And then you've identified that works really well for you. If you get away from that, because we all naturally get away from like different things that work well, then what you kind of force yourself back into that habit again? Because I'm sure you drift off from that.
I do. And I find that when I do is that my productivity starts to really lag even more. Right. Because from there, then it's like, okay, it's maybe sitting around watching a bit of TV in the morning or looking at social media or something like that. Right. But if I'm forced to pretty much get up, get out of the house, and then come back, I'm coming back with a different state of mind, right?
Mike, what about for you? Is there a certain kind of situation where you're just like, wow, when I'm in this flow, things are working out well for me, or is it all over the map? There's no right answer.
Yeah. I'm still old school with the paper-based planner. So I already bought the 2020 planner, and I'll write a lot of things in there that I have to do for 2020. And a lot of that will involve, I'm specifically carving out time for the gym, because I find if I don't go to the gym, I think it's just the chemical releases and whatnot that I just don't feel as good. And then I go in and out of different things. I've tried the 5-minute journal, the productivity planner. it almost seems like I need different things at different times. So
that's a good way to put it. I'm like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'll come back, I'll shelf it for a while, then I'll come back to it. But I like the 5-minute journal, cause you start off the day being grateful. I like the productivity planner, but my paper-based planner is also sort of a productivity planner anyway. So I'm already planned the day ahead. So I know what type of follow-up I have to do, what kind of seeking to do, whether it be with builders or different opportunities. So I never stray from that though. That paper-based planner is my biggest
So
asset.
when you get an electronic calendar invite, you'll accept the invite
still
and
will.
then you'll write it in
But I still will
write it in your calendar.
Yeah.
So that is your life.
That is, yeah.
And the productivity planner and the 5-minute journal, if you're listening to this, I forget the Toronto-based company that puts those out, but if you just Google productivity planner or 5-minute journal, you can get like examples of those things on their websites. They're pretty handy.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to ask you guys was this. When I would listen to the Tony Robbins tapes in my car, there's a certain group of my friends that would totally make fun of me for listening to that kind of stuff. So I just didn't even bring it up with them. That's the way I handled it. And I'm curious, did you have friends who heard you playing these audio cassettes in your car? For some reason, Ruben, I just think of you with some little T-shirt on. that long hair you used to have didn't you have T-bars on your car or something? What car did you drive in high school?
Oh, in high school?
Yeah. I know you listened to Tony Robbins after high school.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
I should
that
have
was way
flashback
on.
to that.
That was like Oracle.
Yeah.
No, in high school.
Didn't you have an IROC or something?
No.
What was it?
No, I had a Mazda MX-6 GT Turbo.
And you're just shaking your head at the IROC?
Because the IROC was very much like a Gino type mobile, right? Right, where I had it was an imported car. It did not.
Dude, you look like a classic Gino.
I know, but I literally had, it was the import, which did not suit my personality, right? So.
Where were we? Yeah, when people, you're in your 20s, and people were listening to this or heard this in your car, did you just like dismiss it, or what did you do?
Yeah, I think that's even to today too. If you mention it, some people are just not into that. And yeah, I think that's fine. Different things get different people going.
I think a lot of times when I don't tell people, right, unless they ask, and I'm very open with it. But when you're kind of volunteer it, like, and it's unsolicited, it almost feels like it becomes religious, right? And you're trying to fix somebody.
Force feeding it. Yeah.
But what I did for selfish reasons, like with my kids and family members, is as I would learn lessons in those, and I didn't have tapes, I had CDs, because it was later. Mm-hmm. As I listened to those lessons in those CDs, what I did selfishly is I would then go share it with my kids or my wife, right? Or a close friend or something like that, just to reinforce that idea, right? And then eventually they realized that I wasn't doing it for them, I was doing it for me. But I wouldn't volunteer and just tell anybody,
I have this thing on personal development is I never look at it as an expense in my life. I always look at it as an investment into myself. And the most ridiculous example of that is probably a box of tapes I bought from Robert Allen for about $5,000. I think I've told you this story before, but it was, I convinced Carol, we had just gotten married, just moved into our first house. We didn't have a dining room table. We had missing furniture in the house, and we had a bit of extra money, and I think the majority of it was probably $5,000 that was liquid. And I asked Carol if it was okay if I could go buy these Robert Allen tapes. And I don't know how she supported me through the years on some of these things, but literally a box of tapes arrives at my front door, and all of the real estate education in there was stuff I already knew. Like, there wasn't a new thing in that $5,000, but there was one little sliver of tapes that was explaining how to speak effectively in front of a group. And about a month in the future, I was going to speak in front of 300 people at Oracle. And Ruben, I don't know if you remember this, but it was a talk that was explaining, I think it was Mark. I forget which guys asked me to do the talk, but a bunch of guys asked me to speak in front of about 300 people at a bowling alley. We were all there at this bowling alley. I think it was Planet Bowl in Eglinton there. And it was to explain what it was like to make the sales. What was it? No, it was like to make your sales quota and go to club. Remember, I had that club where you went to, and I had to give that talk, and I listened to those tapes for about a whole month before giving that talk, and I used a lot of the things I learned from that talk, And after I gave that talk, I had such good feedback of like, oh my gosh, you know, you made people laugh and you called people out and you used these stories and examples. And it just gave me such confidence that it kind of put me on this path of feeling very comfortable speaking in front of people. Mm-hmm. And so that $5,000, as ridiculous as it sounds to spend on a box of tapes, it kind of changed my life from just a bunch of little tapes that were stuck in the middle of that. I don't even know why I'm sharing that with you guys now. It's just always stuck. It's always stuck. I'm just sharing because I know it sounds so ridiculous, but it was like a changing point, a turning point in my life for me. And the tapes I couldn't listen to in my car because my car had a CD player, but these were tapes. So I had to go to Zellers and buy a ghetto blaster with batteries, and I put it on the passenger seat of my car, and I put the tapes in the ghetto blaster. So when people would go out for lunch at Oracle, they would always ask like why I had a ghetto blaster in the car, and I would always just kind of dismiss it. I'm like, I'm just listening some stuff, and I would put it in the back seat and not kind of pay any attention. So I kind of hid it a little bit. I think I was a bit embarrassed by it.
Should have had a piece of cardboard in the back seat and say you were a break dancer.
Oh my God, Mike! I don't know if you know the story. I think Mike knows this story. So for those of you who don't know, when Ruben was actually my sales manager at Oracle, and we were selling into the U.S. at one point, and we had to work Canadian Thanksgiving because it wasn't a U.S. Thanksgiving, and we were based here in Mississauga, but we're selling into the U.S. So you somehow thought it was a great idea for us to all work on the Canadian Thanksgiving, and us being a hardworking team, we decided it was going to work. And you said this, I'll never forget this, Mike. He goes, as a reward for you guys working on the Canadian Thanksgiving, I'm going to bring in my BMX bike and we'll have a break in the middle of the day and we'll go in the parking lot and I'll show you guys some tricks. Oh my God. And one of the tricks was having like 3 or 4 of how many of us lay down? He got like 3 or 4 of us to lay down like freaking sausages all in a row. And then he like bunny hopped over us. And this is what our sales manager was giving us as the reward for working on a Canadian holiday. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Anyway,
I would remember that manager though.
Yeah, no, you're right. You did go down as a pretty legendary manager. You had the best sales team. I did. You had a killer sales team. But
they had a good manager.
Yeah. So someone who might be listening to this trying to find out their own journey, or Mike, actually, your kids.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have you given any thought? What are you going to tell your kids about finding their own path in life? Is it just going to be hard work and, explore?
Super good question. I feel some of the greatest books written in my house that need to be still cracked open by myself. But I think social media is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because looking back then, there was Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. There wasn't really many people out there, but the people that were out there were the real deal. It wasn't easy to get a book published back then. Now, anybody can produce content, whether it be video, audio, books. People are self-writing, self-publishing. It's going to be interesting. So I think I'm going to refer them back to the books that I have in our library, because that's the real deal. That stuff there. I think more now than ever, people are just regurgitating and summarizing some of the great classics, but they're missing the nitty gritty.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
It's going to be a tough one.
That's a really good. You're right, because I think we are seeing like a surface level regurgitation of some amazing stuff that if you just go a little deeper can change your life. Because I'm having flashbacks to all of Dale Carnegie's books,
that's
like
exactly what I was thinking.
Were you?
That was my favorite book. How
to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
That book changed me, man. That book was amazing. I haven't read it in years, and I have a feeling the English it was written in was a little older English, so it was a little difficult to read, but not excessively difficult. But Think and Grow Rich, by Napoleon Hill was a great one. All of Tony Robbins stuff was a great one. I loved the I think you pronounce his name Ogmandino. That he wrote books like The Greatest Salesman in the World, The Richest Man in Babylon. Those books were just kind of blow my mind kind of books. A newer one would be The Power of Focus by Les Hewitt, Mark Canfield, and Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. Okay. The Power of Focus, that book was freaking amazing. Ruben, you mentioned the quadrants. Those quadrants I stuck with for like about 5 years. That had a huge impact on my life. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
That was a good book,
So there's all these books out there that are like classics that I wonder if with social media it's so easy to watch like a 2-minute video instead.
I think it's
but maybe they get the information faster that way, or it gets to the point sooner. I don't know.
I think if it comes too easy, you just kind of take it for granted and you don't grab it and basically embrace it, right? before, it wasn't available as much. So if you found a good book, right, or a mentor, you would just basically take that, and you would it was and know how precious it was, and you would definitely take it to the full advantage. But right now, I could be at home listening to something on YouTube, and it's a great piece of advice, but there's so much information. I'm like, that was good, and it just doesn't digest. Right, it just move on to the next thing, right? And I think that's what a lot of the newer generation is encountering as well.
And I think one of the things, and we'll wrap it up here, but one of the things that I think comes to mind for me is that when you are getting advice from anyone, I always now look at the source. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to be judgmental by that by any means. I just mean if someone's going to criticize me, because we get a ton of criticism about social stuff we put out on different social platforms, people are very happy to critique us. Yeah. But I always look at the source, like what have they accomplished where they're able to kind of judge me in that fashion. And if I can't really come up with anything good, I kind of dismiss the opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's the only way I can keep myself sane. Otherwise, you can take people's critiques of your own life really personally, and it affects you, especially with all the social media, Mike, when it is so easy to judge people online and post comments kind of online.
Right, for sure.
Thanks, guys. This was a little bit of an experiment. We didn't have a plan. We just sat down and hit record. So I appreciate you guys sharing this stuff. Ruben, any last things to share? We're good? We'll get the mic fixed for you next time, dude. We'll talk about your used car.
Mike got the better mic.
No, you got a good mic, dude. Thanks, guys. Hey, everybody. So hopefully you enjoyed that chat. I think I have an idea based on that, how to structure these going forward. So if you have any feedback for us, please always, you can send it into podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. That's podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. And if you'd like any real estate investing information, the best place is always to go to rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for this time. Until next time, your life, your terms.